Welcome to New Normal, a podcast about finding hope in life change. My name is RJ, and 2 years ago I started this podcast because I all of a sudden found myself, without my permission, as a full-time single dad of 3 young kids. And that podcast took us on a year-long journey while I was figuring that whole experience out. And then it stopped. And a year and a half went by. And now, all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a very new normal together as a world and as a community, as we're facing a pandemic of the COVID-19 virus. And I thought, it's time to come back, and it's time to learn how to live in a new normal together. And it's time for us to know that we're not alone. And that is my greatest hope. It's always been the hope of this podcast, that we could come together realizing that life changes, and sometimes it's cruel, and sometimes it's joyful, and sometimes it happens without our permission. But what we can know is that we're not alone, and that there is hope when things might seem really scary and out of our control. So, welcome back. I'm really excited to be back here with you. You may notice that this is a video. We're doing videos now. There's a reason for that. And if you're listening to this on your podcasting platform, feel free to know that you can also watch this now on either YouTube or on Facebook if you search for New Normal. The reason I wanted to do a video is because with us being self-quarantining and isolating ourselves and practicing social distancing, what I've been craving so much is physical community, and I miss it. And so I wanted to invite you into my family room. I wanted you to see my face. I wanted us to have some kind of connection that felt a little bit more real, that felt a little bit more natural, and somehow hopefully feels a little bit more personal and in person while we're feeling isolated right now as a community. Another change this season is that these episodes are not going to be edited. So you're going to get all the ums and likes that I normally meticulously am trying to edit out. And the reason of that is just because I want to get these out as quickly as possible to you so that we can have something to just feel connected as a community together. This back when we were recording this 2 years ago and we were going through this podcast together, the community aspect of it was really powerful. The letters that you wrote and the connection that you made and the Facebook conversations, it was really lively and it felt really, really beautiful. And I made relationships and connections with people I never would have met otherwise. And I want us to feel connected again. So I want to put out as many episodes as possible on as many different topics, introducing you to as many people as I possibly can. So the best way I can do that while still taking care of my 3 kids and still doing my job is to just put these out as they are. And hopefully it feels even more organic that way. It's scary for me as somebody who's always trying to make everything so perfect. And I'm just letting go of that and just putting this out there. And it feels good, to be honest with you. It feels good. It feels like letting go of something and letting it just be what it is. So I hope that you enjoy this new format and that you enjoy more frequent episodes. It's my goal to get at least 1 a week out to you, maybe even more. We'll see what happens. And with that being said, if you have anything that you want to talk about, and if you have any stories that you want to share, anybody that you think would be a valuable person to share with this community, please reach out to me at my email address, which is rj@newnormal.life. Or you can go to the website, which is www.newnormal.life. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and you can write in a message there, and that will go right to me. So let me know what you want to hear. Let me know if you want to share your story. And feel free to even share your story, even if you don't want me to share it on the show and you just want somebody to share something with. I always appreciate when you guys send me your stories, and that means the absolute world to me. So I was listening to a podcast right as soon as things here in Michigan kind of sounded the alarms, which was last Thursday when our schools closed. And I was listening to a podcast and I was feeling scared. And the podcast host started the show by addressing what was going on with the COVID-19 outbreak and what they were experiencing. And it just felt like solidarity. It felt like they were acknowledging something that was going on inside of me and giving voice to the feelings that I was having, but still trying to figure out. So it felt good that the podcast that I normally listen to that would have normally not have anything to do with something like this would take the time to acknowledge those things. And then it felt good for them to say, okay, that was the acknowledgement. Now let's go back to your regularly scheduled programming. And that felt like a wave of relief too, because I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm just able to take a break for a second from worrying about everything and gathering facts and just feeling scared or feeling everything that I've been feeling, and just be able to just have some form of entertainment, to laugh, to hear stories, and turn my brain off from the scary stuff for a while. So both of those things felt really good to me. So what I'm going to try to do in this season of this podcast is have episodes that are very relevant to what we're experiencing right now as a globe. And I'm going to bring people on that can speak to the things that we're experiencing, give us voice and tools to be able to identify what's going on inside of us and what's going on with us around the world, and help us to understand that at an emotional and mental level. And also bring people on who are able to give us real practical insights, and people who can share stories about their experiences as they're experiencing this outbreak right now. And then I'm also just going to bring you up to speed on my life, just like the old season. There's been so much that has happened over the past year and a half. And I'm also going to just bring in people that have wonderful stories to tell about their new normals that may have nothing to do with this outbreak. And my hope is that we find a balance of feeling connected in this new scary thing that we're experiencing and trying to find hope in that, and then also just some entertainment that we can kind of turn our brains off every now and then from the scary stuff. So that's the plan. I hope you enjoy it. This first episode was all of that I just said to try to set all of this up. And I'll bring you up to speed on my story in upcoming episodes. But what I wanted to do first is share with you a conversation that I had just the other night with my girlfriend, Alex Richardson. And for those of you who have followed me up until this point, me having a girlfriend is a crazy jump from where I was at the last recorded episode of this show a year and a half ago. And I want to share with you about that. We talk about that a little bit. But what's really interesting and what's really relevant right now is her and I have been dating for about 2.5 months. And right now we find ourselves quarantined together in my house for the foreseeable future. And we're going to share with you what that looks like as a new couple, putting the stress on coming together with all the stresses and all the things that come with dating a full-time single dad of 3 young kids. And then we're going to talk about how on top of that, we're going to add this other layer of the fact that we're stuck in this house together most of the time. And I hope you really enjoy this. I really, really loved doing this with her, and I'm really excited to share this with you. And I hope that you enjoy it. So I'm sitting here with Alex Richardson, and can you explain what you do for a living, but can you do it as if I'm a kindergartner?
Sure. So I'm a licensed social worker. So I'm licensed to provide therapy, and I specialized in trauma and international social work for a while, actually. And what I do is I run a social services department for a nonprofit organization in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so what our nonprofit does is we provide legal and social services to immigrants and people seeking asylum in the United States who have experienced violence. So most of our clients have experienced domestic violence or trafficking, various different types of mostly gender-based violence. And so I oversee our department of all the different social workers and caseworkers, and work with our lawyers on how to provide holistic services.
Great. Now, can you explain it to me as if I'm a newborn?
I help other social workers provide the best services that they can.
Thank you. That's amazing. And where do you live?
I live in San Francisco, but right at this moment, I'm in Michigan.
That's right. More specifically, in my house.
Oh, yes.
So you are my girlfriend.
It's true.
And for people listening to the podcast who have followed my story, this is going to be like a really big jump.
Like, holy crap. What?
Yeah, from the person that I left them with, who was very afraid of relationships, dating, commitment, anything like that. And I've certainly had an interesting year and a half when it comes to dating, and I'm sure I'll talk about that in other episodes. In regards,
I'll moonlight on those as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a really a growing, challenging, stretching journey as I've gone into the dating world. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've grown a lot, but it's been a very interesting roller coaster ride. So to go from that to now I'm in a relationship with you, and we've been in a relationship for maybe 2.5 months.
Yep.
And we have been a long distance couple.
Yep.
The whole time, from Michigan to San Francisco. And now we are quarantined together here in Michigan for the foreseeable future.
I literally don't have a return ticket.
Yes. Yeah, you bought a one-way ticket right before, it was a few days before
things got a little crazy.
Yeah, and your work went remote as a preemptive measure.
Yeah.
Looking ahead. And before it was really scary to fly, you flew over here. We kind of talked about it. We did a lot of research.
I asked so many doctors.
Yeah, we asked a lot of doctors if it was safe to the best of their knowledge. And, we considered what it looked like with the kids. I have 3 kids who are now 6, 4, and 3. Yeah. And for me to introduce a woman who's going to be in our house for a period of time is a new thing for them too. So we had a lot to figure out about that. Yeah. But we decided to do it.
Yeah. And luckily not my first visit either. I got to meet them a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Not your first visit. And also, you and I have been friends, like really good friends for the past year. Yeah. And that has made a huge difference because the kids have known who you are. And
definitely.
Yeah. And also they see you as a friend. And that's how we've chosen to, at this time, introduce you to them, still. Mm-hmm. And, that's been an interesting thing for us to kind of work out together too. Which I think I feel really good about that decision. And it was fun for the kids because you visited before for a couple days, and I talked to them before you came on this trip. And it was just nice to sit down and be like, hey, we get a chance to be hosts to a friend of ours who's visiting from out of the area. And we got excited about the idea that we got to learn how to be good hosts, and we got to learn how to welcome somebody into our house who was staying with us for an extended period of time. And so far, they've been handling it really well. Yeah. Actually, really well.
Like, really well.
Yeah.
At a certain point, like almost concerningly easy.
Well, that's actually very fair, because there are we're kind of gauging their attachment,
Yeah.
and trying to be wise, knowing that this is a young relationship, knowing that this is really the first true test of our relationship, and trying to not create any attachments that would be very painful, should things go a direction that I don't feel like talking about right now.
Never gonna happen.
Okay, great. But like, there's been moments, right? Like where where they're looking to you, and they're like trying to figure the whole thing out.
Totally.
Like, they're like, I'm feeling close to this person. What do I say? And they've even like tried on the mama line to you, and we've had to sit down and be like, okay, what do we do when they say that? Like,
Yeah.
what do we decide on?
The script at the moment is you can call me Alex.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of just paying attention to how they're feeling, what they're saying. Like, it's encouraging that they feel safe and that they like want me around. They want me to come like give them like goodnight hugs and cuddles and things like that, which is wonderful. And like, they still know me as the label of a friend, which I think is important for the time being.
Yeah.
And like, when I think there's like questions or things kind of like slip in that, we kind of have like discussions about, what makes the most sense for now, what's going to be the easiest for them to understand. And so kind of not like scolding them or telling them no or anything like that, but just kind of pivoting a little bit to like, well,
Yeah.
you can call me this, it's kind of, for now, this is what makes the most sense.
They seem to handle it really well.
Yeah, I
They
think
respond
so.
well to it. So that's, just so many different things that we've been talking through, and that's been like my favorite thing. And I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's just all of the conversations that, like, the real kind of conversations about things like that we need to talk about as we're figuring this whole thing out together. And the rule has just been open communication, vulnerable, honest, real communication with
Which
each
is
other.
like the whole story of our relationship too, though. Like, before we even decided to like officially be together was so many conversations before that of like, okay, so in these scenarios, and like asking like very thorough, detailed questions, and like really, I think, getting to the core of like, what does each other want, and what are our expectations, and like, what are the challenges, and those types of things. So I think our whole relationship has been set by the foundation of like, okay, knowing these things are going to be in our future, like what makes sense, like what's the party line, what are we agreeing to, what kind of are like the different boundaries and expectations that we want to set like for each other and for our relationship.
Yes. Dating a therapist is a really good idea. and what is the story of our relationship, Alex?
Oh,
Yeah.
do you want to start with that one, or should I?
Oh, please.
No. Oh, fun. Okay. Let's see. I guess I'll start from the very beginning, when you joined a Facebook group that I had already been a part of for a little while.
Yes. How would you okay.
Yeah.
I described this
Back up.
Facebook group. And by the way, as we're recording this, shout out right there. we're live streaming this to that Facebook group, because that
they're
group
watching us
has become our family
in so many ways.
Yeah, and it's a global group. There's about 2,000 people there, and it's a community for people. I would say the intersection is spirituality, being single, maybe going through some kind of trauma. It seems like there's a lot of people who have had difficult experiences, and trying to understand the world and ask, and in a safe place to ask a lot of those questions.
I think that's a great way to explain it. Yeah.
That's that's a nice way to put it, but in reality, it's
also a bit rowdy.
It's a crazy group of beautiful, delightful people doing ridiculous things.
Including you.
Me? Mm-hmm. Anyways, continue with our story.
So I had joined this Facebook group already, and then RJ made his entrance, And one of the things that we had done in this group, especially kind of in the earlier days, was host different like Zoom videos for people to just kind of hang out and talk to each other as we're all kind of spread around the world.
Yeah, and Zoom videos are a chance to just have a group video chat with more than 2 people.
Yeah. So RJ joined one that I randomly decided to join with just a few other people, I think, that night. And that was the first time that we had ever talked, and I think kind of noticed each other a little bit. And we didn't actually talk that much after that for a couple of months.
No, we were just, I think we
Casual
knew who
friends.
each other were, maybe acquaintances at that point. Saw each other post different things in the group and maybe had a couple interactions, but nothing really.
Yeah.
And that was over a year ago.
Significant.
Yeah.
And then you decided to take a solo trip to California.
Yes.
So that was April 2019. And came out to San Francisco first, which is where I live. And so we made a plan to get together there. And it was supposed to be, hanging out for, maybe an hour or 2.
Yeah. I basically got off the plane, put my stuff in my Airbnb, and before I even traveled there, I reached out to anybody in that group who happened to live in the areas that I was visiting on that solo trip. My first destination was San Francisco. My first interaction was you and I were going to meet up for a quick drink, and I looked at it as like, oh, fun. Like I'm going to make a cool friend, and this person's going to kind of give me an introduction to San Francisco, because I kind of went just kind of empty plans, just kind of open-minded about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I was really just kind of expecting more than anything else, like a chance to get to know you a little bit better, and kind of a bit of a tour guide, like, okay, from here on, here's some of the sites that you should probably see.
Yeah. And I didn't really know you, so I didn't plan on spending that much time with you. So we got together for the first night, and I took you to a restaurant, and we just had drinks, something to eat, something like that. And next thing we knew, it was 8 hours later, and we walked around the entire city. And
8 hours that
it really
first
was.
night. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I was barefoot in my shoes.
Yeah, he told me only a couple of months ago, oh yeah, I remember that night. I went home and I had to ice my blisters.
Yeah.
We were not prepared.
No.
So I quickly invited him to hang out with me the next night, and then the next morning and the next night after that. And we spent most of all of my free time for the next few days while you were in San Francisco together, and also invited one of our now really close friends, Rebecca, who's also in the same Facebook group, to come join us. And she had immediately kind of called me out on it. It was yeah, so we'll talk about that at some point. I saw the way you were looking at him.
Yeah. And I just thought I made 2 new friends that I was I thought that I made 2 very meaningful friends. And when I left San Francisco, my thought was this was very special. I would love it if these became lifetime friendships. But I did not have anywhere in my head of anything romantic.
Don't you worry, I did.
The whole friendship was a lie.
It was not. How dare you? So we just stayed friends for a long time, and had various ridiculous group chats with our friend Rebecca, and sometimes on our own, and just became really, really close friends, talking to each other,
We probably talked to each other
all day, every day.
Yeah, we talked to each other every single day in some format, whether it was with friends in a group chat or group video chat, or one-on-one. You became one of my dearest friends very quickly.
You tell the next word.
So I would say, after how many months?
Are you going July?
Well, when you told me that you had feelings for me,
August.
Okay. So
that's May, June, July, 4 months later?
Okay. So after talking to each other every day, basically, you told me you had feelings for me, and I did not see it coming even a little bit.
Which to this day still shocks me a little bit, but also not at all. Like,
I'm very oblivious.
the more I know you, the more no, you had no clue. All the signs were there. Everyone else knew. All of our friends in the Facebook group knew. This was not new information.
It was very new information for me. And I, at the time, had a girlfriend.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was really difficult for me to navigate because I went from feeling rejected and abandoned from my previous relationship, from my marriage. And then all of a sudden I was in this situation and I did not know how to handle it. In the end, I decided that you and I couldn't be friends anymore.
It's ultimately what it got to. Yeah. We didn't know how to navigate a space where like feelings were being expressed and there was kind of like, you know, not knowing where to turn in that and really struggling with it. And, you know, I obviously felt like I needed to like be honest and tell you about where I was at. And it was just really difficult on a lot of levels. So we essentially decided like, okay, well, we clearly need a break then. You know, we're having all these really long, intense conversations. So we essentially were like, okay, we need to like not be talking to each other right now then.
Yeah.
And it was the worst week of our lives.
Yeah. I mourned the loss of that friendship. Unlike anything I've really, like, I cried so much. And I really felt like I lost something incredibly special. And, and anyway, after that relationship that I was in ended, you and I resumed our friendship, and it was very much me like, hey, like, I need you to know that I acknowledge that you have these feelings. I can't let there can't be an expectation right now. I was really kind of reeling from the end of that relationship, and I just wanted a friend. And so I set that boundary up front, and you honored that and understood that and were willing to continue our friendship. And, you know, we would check in from time to time on how we were doing and how things were going. And then it wasn't until December that I allowed myself to be honest with the feelings that I kind of had with the feelings I definitely had for you, but I think I hid them for whatever reasons. And I think there was a couple of reasons actually, because I knew because we had such a deep friendship and we've already gotten to the point where we know each other, like the real versions of each other.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we have helped each other through a lot of really hard stuff in our own growth and healing journeys. So we've seen each other at very vulnerable places.
Very.
And you know every stupid thing that I've done. And you show me value and acceptance and care. Especially from somebody like you who is such a no-nonsense person, like to feel that seen and accepted in the light of all of my clear, what I would consider to be failures or struggles or whatever you would call them. I knew that if I was to allow myself to feel feelings for you, then it would instantly be the most intimate relationship romantically that I've had since my marriage. And up until that moment, which was December, just 3 months ago, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
That scared me.
Yeah. Which I don't know that I fully grasped as we were like going through that process, but I think kind of nearing towards the end and as we were able to kind of like speak more honestly about what we were feeling, like the closer that we got to like December, I think the more that really fell into place for me for just kind of understanding that perspective.
Yeah.
So that's been something that's been really interesting on this journey is, you know, having these shared experiences and in many ways like shared feelings, but different like acknowledgments of them or different like fears around them and things like that. And I think kind of like when I think over those months, like parts of them were obviously like incredibly difficult, but also like the trajectory there and like the different processes and growth and like dealing with our own stuff that like really had to happen for us to get to a place where we could start a relationship like on a solid ground. It all kind of just like, it's like it flattened out before me. Like it was much easier to see like, oh no, like that had to happen.
Yeah, that's very graceful of you. Gracious of you, yeah. Because what a journey that you had to go through while I was finding myself able to be in that position. Like, that was probably really painful. There were some rough
moments.
Yeah.
Some wonderful friends.
Very good friends. Very good, non-judgmental friends.
Yeah. Which I think is, like, something that we both really value, and something that, like, specifically from, like, this group that we have both found of, like, these mutual friends who deeply, deeply care for us. So, like, especially during that time, I think we're, like, some of our closest confidants who knew what we were going through and very much supported, like, both of us. And definitely were relieved once we finally figured our crap out. Yeah. And we're like, okay, like, here's where we're at now. I think they probably all sighed a collective breath of relief. Of like, thank God, you people and your emotions.
Yeah. And we're taking questions right now from that group where we're streaming this live. And this question seems relevant right now from Ginger that asks, like, for you, like, how did you, as somebody who doesn't have kids, how did you determine that you were interested or okay with, or however you would word that?
Oh, what an interesting question.
Being in a relationship with somebody who's a full-time single dad of 3 young kids without an active physical presence from their mom. Yeah.
This was an interesting part of my own kind of journey of, like, realizing my feelings for you. Because after our San Francisco time together, which I like so loved, you know, as we're becoming friends and just kind of talking more in like regular life that's not vacation mode, I had like totally convinced myself of like, oh, no, like, I'm not gonna date this guy. Like, I know absolutely nothing about this life with 3 kids. Like, that's not what my life looks like at all. Like, I can totally convince myself like out of this situation, which was an interesting attempt. And I think 2 things really happened for me. One was like, I stopped trying to convince myself that I didn't have these feelings when I did. And so kind of the more that I let myself move in that direction, the more like these attempts of like reasons to say no really fell away. But I think the bigger piece of it was actually like getting to know you more and speaking to you specifically about like, well, how do you view a partner in your life, and how do you view like the roles and responsibilities and expectations for somebody coming into your life when there are kids in the picture, and like what does that look like? Like, what does your parenting look like? What would like potential co-parenting look like? And I think the more that we had those like extremely real conversations, like some of these conversations are like brutally honest, the more that it kind of started to fall into place for me that like I think something that could feel potentially very daunting. This is going to sound so sappy, but like with you, it didn't. And felt very like safe. And it also like really allowed me to start examining some of my fears around those things before too. Because I wasn't sure like before meeting you that I ever wanted kids. And so it kind of on like a parallel journey opened up this opportunity for me to really examine, you know, where do some of my fears of like being in a role like that come from? And like, what is like this line that somebody in my life tells me all the time when like we're trying to confront these like hard things and really see the truth is like, what's the story I'm telling myself? So I kind of started asking myself like, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself? It's like, okay, I wouldn't be a good enough parent, or like I wouldn't, you know, be able to fill this role in this way and things like that. And the more that I kind of was able to on my own like personal journey working through my ideas of what that is, kind of tear down those different walls in some ways, and fears and insecurities and things from my own experiences of like, okay, I actually have nothing against being a parent. I have, these different fears of like, what does that look like when you're not in a situation that is safe and you're not in a place where your partner is truly your equitable partner.
Yeah.
So I, not to go full social worker on you, but like kind of came against a lot of like, oh, I have these like societal fears of it. I see all of these other women that I love, who had, these amazing careers that they really prized and wanted to do, who were forced really like to not be able to do the different things that they wanted because they were put in a position where it all had to be put on them.
Yeah.
And their partnerships didn't look the way that I would want mine to. And so I think for me, that was like the biggest mental hurdle of like, no, actually, if I'm in the type of relationship that we both want to be creating and the type of partnership that like, that's something that's actually really joyous. So it's actually been really oddly liberating for me in a lot of ways of being able to like have these experiences, and like this time now of like being quarantined in the house together, of like learning like I actually enjoy this, and like not even like enjoy it, but like I'm a lot better at it than I gave myself credit for. I think I
wonderful.
had, it's very kind of you. I think I had this fear of like, okay, well, I've been told that a mom is supposed to do this and she should have all these amazing Pinterest boards and she should probably know everything that ever existed about childhood development and like a PTA mom and
Pinterest-free zone.
Yeah, but like you get all these ideas of what you're supposed to be as a mom and these ideas from like the church and like all sorts of different places. And I was like, oh, that is not me. That's not my personality at all. And so kind of be in like this time period with you and like normal daily life and like how does that work, it's actually been really cool for me to be able to just like engage in those moments and get kind of a glimpse, I think, into what that actually is about, instead of like these ridiculous expectations that you can build up in your head.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but like we're both so keenly aware that this is time that we've never had before like this, especially with the kids. So the time and the space to like constantly be checking in and like debriefing about that is invaluable.
That's been my favorite thing about this past 8 days of quarantine together is the checking in.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I really... Like, I hope it's like, I worry that I'm like, like this morning, I'm just like, she's not even awake yet, but I want to ask her how she's doing. It's like, I don't even give you a chance to wake up. But like, that's, yeah, like we just set a precedent going into this.
Totally.
Of like, we need, like, if there's any chance that something like this, like, first of all, to put a 2-month-old relationship in a situation where we're together for a frequent period of time, taking away anything that's going on in the world right now. If it was just that I'm a single dad and you were kind of coming in for a week, to kind of like just kind of live life with us. Yeah. Like that in itself would have been a very big thing to put on a young relationship like this, and then to take that and then on top of it put the fact that we can't really leave the house, or that we're choosing not to leave the house outside of getting groceries and like the essential things that we need to do to leave, like and the kids aren't leaving the house, like that's to put that on the relationship. Plus this is a scary time, like there have been nights where you and I just hold each other because we're scared, and like we're trying to figure out how we're interpreting this information that we keep on getting. Like we read the news or we get a new piece of information about the pandemic, and we just feel scared and anxious or whatever, and we're asking each other how we're feeling and checking in on how we're feeling about that, how we're feeling with you away from home during such a time like this. how you're doing with the kids, just how we're doing. And you and I both are so used to being, you with your profession and me with being what I am for my kids. Like, we're used to feeling like we have to be the pillars of the worlds that we're a part of, like holding the weight of everything and being the strong one. So for you and I both to say to each other constantly, like, look, like, don't be a pillar right now. Like I want to know how you're really doing, how you're really feeling. And for me to be able to share with you my anxieties that I've been feeling about security and finances and being able to provide for my kids and what is it going to be like when I go to the grocery store, like all those like things that are on my mind, and just to be fully vulnerable before you has been really beautiful to know that you're doing the same with me.
Yeah.
So I really am so grateful for the communication. I'm really grateful for the time that we're having together, and neither of us know what anything looks like from today forward, truthfully, in the world, or how long we'll be here. But like, for us to be able to have this time as a couple, and I'm so grateful that I'm not alone.
Me too. During
all of this. And you are such an amazing partner. This is such an equitable experience. Like you said, like, I have such incredible help and support from family and from my nanny. But I haven't experienced a partnership like this before. And it's really, really beautiful. And so I'm very grateful.
Me too.
What do you want to say about what we're experiencing right now with the pandemic and with us trying to figure all this out?
Oh, gosh. I mean, honestly, I think I echo just most of what you're saying. You know, I joked the other day that, like, they tell you in relationships, like, you know, before you make any decisions or get even more serious, like, you should, like, get in a fight, or you should see each other sick, or, you know, kind of these, like, lists that different people come up with of, like, you know, you should experience this together and then you'll know. It's like, should we add to the list, like, worldwide crisis? Like, you experience a pandemic together and then, like, man, your relationship is really going to be solidified, or you're going to go, nope. Like, you kind of see the best and the worst of each other, I think. So to be in a place where I think we are being, like, extremely open and vulnerable with each other about, like, our anxieties and stresses and things like that, and also, like, in a place of, like, deeply caring for each other and trying to create a space where the kids aren't, you know, stressed about things, and kind of just being able to almost take advantage of the time that we have, you know? So, like, there's all this fear and not that much else that we can do. You know, we're social distancing and that's kind of it, and taking precautions. And so from there, it's like, okay, we would never dream that we could get time like this. You know, we talked about this as, like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if, like, a year from now I was able to, like, come to Michigan for, like, a month and, like, work remotely, and we could, you know, see just a little bit more, like, what that life would be like.
Yeah.
So to kind of find ourselves essentially doing that, God knows what, like, at this point is interesting for sure, and also kind of just, you know, almost a, like, silver lining gift of it, of, like, okay, if we have to be going through this as, like, a society, as a world, certainly would much rather be doing it with you and here.
That's been the biggest thing I've been thinking of. Yeah, I'd much rather be doing this together.
Yeah.
We have a question that I thought we may have answered, we may have not, but I think I liked this. This is from Melissa. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned about each other while being quarantined together?
Surprising. I can't think of anything. What you got?
Oh, wow, I'm trying to think. I probably should have had an answer ready after reading it. I mean, for me, the pillar thing was really interesting. Like, the idea of both of us, like, it was just a big realization that both of us come from a background or a self that we've created that says, I need to be strong. I need to hold everything up. And I've never been in a relationship with anybody that was, like that. And the fact that we had to just see each other in times of stress, I think it's so important for relationships for you to see how this person that you want to partner with is able to handle a very difficult situation, or just great stress, or just, because things happen. There's always going to be, in every relationship, in every life, there's going to be multiple instances where life is really hard. So it's really great to see how your partner handles that, so that
Yeah.
you can see them in that world. And I think it's just been really cool to see both of us in, a very stressful, very scary time, very uncertain time. And for us just to look at each other and encourage vulnerability, and encourage each other not to do what we're programmed to do, which is put on the strong face and hold everybody else up.
Yeah.
And I love that we've pushed each other out of that. So just to be able to be scared together and acknowledge that we're both scared sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that, I think that has been not really a surprise, because I know that we are able to be vulnerable.
None of it's actually a surprise. It's just like a deepening of things that I already knew were expected. Because the kind of like flip side of that, of like, okay, when you do see the other person, or when you are really acting like out your stress and anxiety, for me, like one of the coolest things has been like, how does the other person hold that? And like, how do I respond when that's you? How do you, when like that's kind of where I'm at? And like seeing, okay, I can be like vulnerable in this, and like it's fine that I am stressed and anxious. We all are. Like it's okay to be kind of like expressing those like emotions and like voicing that, and that not like landing with each other in a way that's like, ooh, I don't know what to do with that, or like the other person not really like responding well.
Yeah.
It's because I think that just like encourages like more vulnerability, right? So like being able to let kind of those things down, and the other person really like holding and receiving them well, just kind of encourages more of like, yeah, like we can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only like holding the space, but also, when appropriate, offering to be part of the solution.
Totally.
When there is a solution. Sometimes there's not a solution, just being afraid of the unknown, but like when I expressed the other day, when I was noticing the kids really seemed like they needed some alone one-on-one time with me, for you to be like, okay, like I'm setting time on my schedule so I can take 2 of them at a time, so that I can go and have a one-on-one experience with each one of my kids today. Was really beautiful. And for me, that's gold, because I can't really do that unless I have help. And that was really meaningful to me. I know what's been more surprising to me is what I'm learning about myself, and certainly experiencing the pandemic and trying to see how I'm responding to all the things that come with that, and what I'm learning about myself in that, and also what I'm learning about myself in sharing a space with a romantic partner again. Yeah. Like, this is new territory since my marriage. And like, since my marriage, I've created this routine in this world that is like the most sterile, like...
I don't fold the laundry the right way, you guys. I'm just going to let you know
oh my
now.
Gosh, I did not say that.
It can't be done. He has some sort of ridiculous system. He learned folding from, I don't know, someone in Banana Republic. It can't be recreated.
It's Marie Kondo.
Okay.
Let it be said, I did not tell her that she did it wrong or anything like that. And that's not how I view it.
It was openly voiced of like, listen, I'm going to fold this laundry right now and help with this situation. And it's not going to be the way that you want it to be. And that's going to be okay.
Yep. I appreciated that. I totally appreciated that.
We'll totally fix it later, but it's fine.
I will. But that's the thing. Like I've in my lack of control of the divorce.
Totally.
I ran for control in certain things I've seen and I've learned about myself in my diet and my exercise and my routine with the kids and and how I have everything in its right place at home, you
Yeah.
know, and how I've kind of created this home to be exactly what I want. So now, like
You're like relinquishing a little control.
I am, and it's just, I feel like over the past couple of years, I feel like I've been doing good at that gradually.
Yeah.
But then, like, to realize once you're here like that, I'm like, oh, there are so many ways I still see that, like, very, like, need for control part of me that is, in my opinion, an unhealthy part of me that needs to be relaxed. It needs to be open. And that's always been a fear, is that, like, I become so rigid that I don't create space for another person in my life. So to have you here has helped me see that in myself and given me a lot of great opportunities to let go of that.
Well, it's also so reasonable, right? So, like, the desire to have that type of control when it's so, like, stripped from you and, like, you know, almost like violently taken from you is so natural. So, like, to build that up to make a safe place for you and your kids is exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's just indicative of, like, a new part of the healing process of, like, okay, so I needed to set up all these things and, like, I did the right thing, you know, and I'm not in this place of, like, survival 24/7 anymore. And so it's okay, like, if some of the things change a little bit. And it's just, I think, almost to just learning each other. So, like, you make concessions, right? Like, that's part of, like, partnership of, like, okay, sure, I'll load the dishwasher that way. And, like, you know, like, learning that not everything is the end of the world, and also learning some of the ways that, like, the other person likes things. Like, I think that's all just such normal relationship things, you know, at all. And so it just has this, like, extra layer of, you know, I did these things from, like, a completely reasonable place. And so the way that you're, like, noticing them is, like, I think so natural. And, like, give yourself a little credit. Like, you know, I poke fun at the things of the dishwasher and the laundry. You don't, you know, like, so it's, you know, I make the joke of just knowing that you will have, I'm sure, done things differently than the way that I do when I'm trying to help out as we're here. But, like, never once have you pressed, like, great try, but it would be
No.
you know, like, so you're not, like, taking things or, like, seeking to have control over even this entire experience. You know, I think I see a lot of just, like, okay, this is new. And, like, if that creates kind of, like, a momentary reaction of, like, that's not how I do it, like, that's okay.
I appreciate that. Because in the end, for me, what's been overwhelming, the message to me is, like, wow, this is what partnership looks like.
Totally.
Like, this is beautiful and foreign, and every little thing that you do has been so powerful and has spoken of deep love to me. Like, I'm very, very grateful for this chance to be living in what I dreamed I would have, and didn't even know how to define, which is an equitable partnership. So thank you.
Oh, you know. Happy to help. Right back at you. I mean, yeah, obviously. I think there's no way we would have the relationship that we do, even when it's long distance, much less the way that we're currently, like, partnering with each other in, like, this quarantine period, if that wasn't something that we had already built, you know, like, we already knew that the other person was, like, a trusted, equitable partner, and now you just get to put it into all of the little daily, like, stuff around the house type of action.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I've said to you multiple times, is one of my favorite things about you is that you don't need me. Like, I know that you're a person who is very independent and is very capable of taking care of yourself. You have for many, many years. And I've been doing the same thing with a great community of support over the past couple of years and learning how to be independent. And and it makes for great partnership, you know?
Yeah, it does.
So it's just nice to know that both of us have that background, and it gives me confidence that we can have that experience, that true partnership experience.
Totally.
So there's a lot of hope.
Oh, I agree.
This question might have, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say there's like this interesting idea that I think a lot of people have, and like that I used to have as well, of like, oh, if you're a really independent person, then like you'll have this like really challenging time being in a partnership because you're just going to want to do everything on your own or by yourself. And I think at a certain point I would have like bought into that idea. You know, I at one point shaped a lot of my like persona around being like a strong independent woman. You know, I'm going to go wherever I want in the world and do lots of crazy things.
Yeah, and me as a single dad.
Totally.
Keyword single, because that's what makes it impressive. So
Right.
like to relinquish that title was hard for me.
Right. And so I think I, wondered like what that would be like, because I was never the girl like in like a serious committed relationship. I was the girl who was going to go take a job in South Asia because I wanted to.
And you did.
And I did. And that's a different story for a different day. And so I think it's been, for me, so unexpected and cool to see like that's not actually a hindrance in the way that I approach this relationship. And I don't think the way that either of us approach like our partnership, like to me, that's actually been this like amazing benefit of like, yeah, I know I can do the things like on my own. Like I know what I am capable of, and I am choosing to not do everything by myself. And it's like a gift of like vulnerability of like, yeah, I could spend the rest of my life doing whatever I want, wherever I want, and like, not really having any sort of things that tie me down, but that's not what I'm choosing. Like I'd rather have less of that independence and like have it tied up with you.
I love that.
Me too.
That's really beautiful. I don't have anything else to say.
I thought you had a question.
I did, but that was so good.
Okay.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for listening to our story. This show has gotten me through a really difficult time in my life. When I felt like my life was out of control, doing this show was a really big part of getting me through that. And now when I feel scared and realizing there's a lot of things that are out of my control during this experience, doing this podcast has brought me a lot of hope and joy again. And so that you're here and that you're listening means the world to me. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you if you decide to rate this podcast on any podcast platforms that you're listening on, or write even a review. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, thank you for sharing it or liking it or subscribing there too. Most of these episodes will probably be video episodes to try to continue to feel connected in a communal way as much as I'm able to. And I hope you enjoy this new format for those of you who are watching. I look forward to sharing the next episode with you. It's coming soon, in less than a week most likely. And I've recorded a couple of these already, and gosh, I'm just so excited to share these people with you, and these stories, and this hope, and this joy, and this life that I have found in having conversations with people who are just magnificent. So thank you again for being here. I love you, and may you make every day count.